Strike down the deal! Strike down the deal! Strike down the deal! Strike down the deal!
You're seeing a handful of protesters there outside court today. They were chanting, "Strike down the deal." That's a reference to this settlement between Purdue Pharma, its owners, the Sackler family, and victims of the opioid crisis. It's a settlement the Biden administration is now arguing against, since it lets the Sacklers avoid any future lawsuits related to that epidemic. For some victims, it's a moment marking the most high-profile and most highly charged fight yet in a battle for accountability. For Ellen Isaacs,
he was a remarkable young man.
The grief still raw after her son, Ryan, overdosed and died in her home in 2018 after struggling 17 years with addiction.
I hear this huge bang on the bathroom wall, and I finally got it unlocked, and he was there on the floor, blue and foaming at the mouth.
Isaac says Ryan got hooked on opioids after doctors prescribed him painkillers for a back injury. It's why she joined a lawsuit against Purdue Pharma, formerly owned by the Sackler family. But the terms of the settlement mean she wouldn't be able to sue on her own down the road. No one would, since the settlement releases the Sacklers from future liability.
The Sacklers are just doing whatever they want to do, and we're stuck left and holding the bag.
It's every mother's nightmare. And so for Purdue to come in and structure a way to their owners to escape liability is just wrong. That's all she's asking for, to go before a jury of her peers and have a trial.
Attorney Mike Quinn.
This is not over.
In court today after giving up corporate cases to devote more time fighting for victims of the opioid crisis, an epidemic estimated to have killed more than 600,000 Americans.
This bankruptcy system was not set up for people to absolve themselves of wrongdoing and really bad activities.
Under the Sackler family, Purdue manufactured OxyContin, the highly addictive opioid. The company's already pleaded guilty to multiple crimes related to misleading the public about the drug's potential for abuse. Hospitals, states, and individuals brought thousands of cases against Purdue, which this settlement, now on hold, would resolve. Its terms mean the Sacklers would be paying billions of dollars to victims and others in return for the release of liability. To some, it is enough. Lawyers for one group representing multiple plaintiffs, writing in a brief, while their clients have no love lost for the Sacklers, they recognize the settlement is the only means of getting billions of dollars in life-changing and life-saving funds that are desperately needed today. Reps for the Sacklers did not respond to our request for comment, but lawyers for Purdue in court argued this money matters.
Creditors and victims will be left with nothing, and lives literally will be lost. Nothing in the code commands that tragic result.
I want to bring in now one of our Supreme Court correspondents, Lawrence Hurley, who is joining us here. You spent the morning, I know, at the Supreme Court following these arguments here that we've just laid out. It seems like if you're reading the tea leaves, the justices seemed pretty split with some questions over why they should blow up this deal, since, as we noted, there are some plaintiffs who are in favor of they want the money. That's what Purdue is arguing. On the other hand, there's concern here that this releases the Sacklers of any other accountability down the road. So help us understand the arguments and where you think this may go. I'm not asking you to make predictions, but just the sense from your sort of expert knowledge of tea leaves here.
It's a tough one for the justices because I think there's a sort of dry legal argument that's about, what the power of bankruptcy judges and whether they can approve settlements that involve people who aren't directly involved in the bankruptcy, which is in this case is the Sacklers. And there, the court, some of the justices at least seem pretty sympathetic to that argument. But then you have this bigger question of like, well, you're going to blow up this big settlement. Most of the plaintiffs support it. It's a lot of money, and they might not be able to get the money in any other way. And some of those comments were sort of encapsulated by Justice Elena Kagan, who had some comments on both sides, which I think we can listen into now.
Overwhelming, the support for this deal, and among people who have no love for the Sacklers, among people who think that the Sacklers are pretty much the worst people on earth. In some ways, they're getting a better deal than the usual bankruptcy discharge because, as Justice Gorsuch indicated, they're being protected from claims of fraud and claims of willful misconduct.
And so, what we can see there is that Justice Kagan, on the one hand, she's saying, well, they're getting a sweet deal here, but on the other hand, she's saying, well, we need to protect this settlement to help the people who are suffering from the opioid epidemic.
Does this seem like a case, and again, just so people understand, we're not going to know which way the justices will go until probably the end of the term here, at least close to the end of the term in spring or early summer. Does this seem like a case that may split down sort of quote-unquote traditional party lines for these justices?
No, I don't think so. I mean, the argument today suggested that, you know, they're all kind of grappling with this.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't really clear, like, if anyone was super one way or the other. It's more like they're all kind of weighing both sides. Yeah, but some of them, you know, Justice Neil Gorsuch seemed very supportive of the government position, but other people not so much. The
stakes are huge here, Lawrence.
Yeah, there's a lot of money at stake. That was a point made by Pratik Shah, who's one of the lawyers for the victims. And we can hear a little bit of what he's had to say.
Let me be crystal clear. Without the release, the plan will unravel, Chapter 7 liquidation will follow, and there will be no viable path to any victim recovery.
And so what we can see from that is that, you know, if this settlement doesn't get approved, the victims think they might not get anything.
Yeah, we will see how this one plays out. Lawrence Hurley, thank you very much with a very high-profile day at the Supreme Court. Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.